the last wrap up of 2022. December. Lost my voice. Hi. Such an incredible month. I can't wait to go over every single book that I read. Where should I put my shoes? I'm your amor, I'm your amor. You said put it on your head. I'm your amor, I'm your amor. You make me bugger loco. No, seriously, where should I put these? Wait. Alright, let's get to the books I read. 10 books. 11-ish, you'll see what I mean. First book of December was The House Across the Lake by Rayleigh Sager. Mystery, thriller, suspense, and a little bit of celebrity lifestyle, but it doesn't really go Evelyn Hugo on you. It mostly takes the thriller route. Alternative timeline. This follows a woman whose husband just died. She moves to this lake house. I think it's her mother's. It's a very secluded area with only 4 other houses on the lake. A young couple moves to the house across from hers. So she starts to spy on them. She picks up on some weird activities. She becomes suspicious and she decides to go after it. You are literally going through a lot of turns and twists and you suspect everyone. Not a fast-paced book in my opinion. I thought it was kind of dragged on. Then another theme enters the book, paranormal activity, and the author uses paranormal activity to explain away all these weird things that has been happening, and that to me breaks a book, because personally I do not enjoy paranormal activity, but I specifically hate it when it's done so badly. Like, this felt silly. I was like, there's no way that all of that build up was for that climax. There must be another explanation, which is essentially why I didn't DNF it. I really thought there would be like an alternative ending that will shock me. It never arrived. That's why this was a 2-star read. Second read, Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. YA fiction, young adult, no spicy scenes. Story follows a teen girl whose mother is dead, but she is not over it and she kind of still lives in that area when her mother was still alive. Something that binds them together is that they both enjoy romantic comedy movies so much. So literally at the back you have Harry and Sally, Tom Hanks, Bridget Jones, and Mark Darcy. And each chapter starts with a quote from a rom-com movie. This one is, just because she likes the same bizarro crap you do doesn't mean she's your soulmate. And this is from 500 Days of Summer. I love that movie. Now she has these ideas of romance and love in her mind, and she has painted this perfect picture of how it should be with her perfect guy. She asks this neighboring boy, which is also her nemesis, to help her to get the attention of this perfect guy that she likes. The characters are so lovable, the chemistry between them is so sweet, and the way that the story is written is just very simple and easy to read. So it's a great light-hearted book. If you enjoy movies and music, a lot of that is mentioned in this book. So yeah, this was really enjoyable. Fourth book was an audiobook, The Last Thing He Told Me. I can't remember the name of the author though. Mostly a mystery, a suspense, not so much a thriller. Very promising in the beginning, because there was no introduction. It literally just jumped into the story and I was just hooked from the beginning. So there were a lot of dead ends and literally I had no idea how the story would end. Didn't suspect anyone. The story follows a woman, and in the very first scene you can see that she's just chilling at her home. Suddenly a knock on the door and someone gives her a letter that is from her husband. She finds this very odd because her husband is just supposed to be at work. So the day goes on, her husband does not come home. And then she finds out that her husband is not coming home and that he's actually missing. As all mystery books do, it arrived at the explanation or the climax and it was not good. Very last line was warm and I was kind of like, oh, that's sweet. At the end of a mystery book, I don't want to feel like, oh, that was sweet. I want to feel like, oh my God, what did just happen? But no, I didn't feel that way. It was a very average read. Next, I read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. If you remember, I DNF'd this last month because I wasn't ready to read a heavy topic. I liked this. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, which is a little bit disappointing because I thought I would just love this book so much. Part fiction, part memoir. Some of it is based on the author's life, but some of it is just fiction. I'm not exactly sure which parts are memoir, which parts are fiction. It follows this Vietnamese family that leave their country, move to Central America as refuge, and start living there. It touches on a lot of different topics like sexuality, coming of age, racism, sexism, language barrier, poverty, domestic abuse, just a lot of sensitive topics. What I didn't enjoy about this book is that, first of all, Ocean Vuong is a poet. You can clearly see that in the way he wrote this book. That is the problem. I feel like there was this constant battle between the writing style being very poetic and then the story being too sensitive and too deep and too heartbreaking. These two ended up just battling to be the center of attention in the book and kind of ended up canceling each other out, because when I finished, I didn't feel a lot of impact, a lot of heartbreak. At the same time, as I was reading, I was just confused most of the time because the writing was so chaotic and so messy. I was just lost as to, okay, what part of the story am I reading now? Where are they? What are they doing? How old is he? Nonetheless, there were a lot of very poetic, beautiful, and artistic parts, but it was just that, really. It was like reading some beautiful portions, but not really following a complete and whole story. Still, I would read this author's next novel, honestly. Next was another audiobook by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Evidence of the Affair. This was a short story, so 100-page book and 90 minutes long audiobook. For me, it was almost an average read, 3 out of 5 stars. It's so short, I didn't really have a lot of time to dive deep into the story or get attached to the characters. The story follows this man and woman who are exchanging letters about their partners because their partners are actually having an affair together, and these two are communicating about this problem, how they can face it, and how they're feeling, and what they should do about it. And the rest of the plot, you can listen to it yourself because I don't want to spoil it since it's only like 90 minutes long. But I did enjoy the writing, I did enjoy the characters and how they were portrayed. I did enjoy the format of the story in the form of those letters. It made that 90-minute more interesting, and I really appreciated the ending so much. My takeaway message from the book was that there isn't one path and one advice that suits everyone, and everyone has different needs and they need to decide based upon that. I feel like they're getting louder by the minute, right? You know what? We're just gonna power through. Next book was this masterpiece. I adored this. It's not 5 stars. It is another one of those rare 6 stars for me. This was just everything I wanted in a romance book like this. Mostly romance on the verge of literary fiction instead of rom-com. So it's more serious, more deep. Second chance, childhood friends to lovers romance. A lot of beautiful portrayal of family and friendship. The way this was written was so wholesome, so beautiful, and so touching. The chemistry between the two main characters was absolutely phenomenal. I was so rooting for them to be together. This alternative timeline between then, when the two main characters are kids and they start to get to know one another. They spend time at this vacation house, and they share their hobbies, they eat, they swim, and they read a ton of books. So you follow their coming of age and them growing up, and then life happening, and then they drift apart. Then alternative timeline between then and now, as by fate they have met again. Would they move on, or this is a once in a lifetime love story and they're matchmates in heaven and they cannot let it go? And I think we know the answer to that, but we'll pretend that we don't. There's a really heartbreaking and, for me, unexpected twist that I was like, okay, so this book just literally has everything. I just felt, I don't know, everything while reading this. I was literally laughing out loud. I was crying, and I was just hoping, and I was just rooting for these two to be together. So I'm so happy I finally read this book because it was so worth every bit of the hype. By the way, every little thing that you see on the cover is actually related to the book. Then I found my next Colleen Hoover favorite book, Heart Bones. I adored this book. It was so aching, so beautiful, so hopeful. I loved every bit of it. The way it was written, obviously, I personally adore the way that Colleen Hoover writes her story. It follows a girl graduated from high school, and in 2 months she's going to be in college. She's excited to leave her abusive and neglectful home, but a certain death of someone happens that forces her to live with her father, with whom she doesn't have any close relationships. While she's there, she gets to see who her father really is. his new family. She gets to meet some friends and obviously a boy. Chemistry between her and that boy is just so good. I loved every time they interacted together. It was this really beautiful exploration of a love so deep, so pure, that can cut through layers of heart walls that took years of pain and loneliness to build. Character development was so powerful to witness, honestly. This female character is such a badass. She just owns all of her heartache and she uses it to find her way, her identity, and make a future for herself. I know sometimes people don't like that aspect in Colleen Hoover book, that the female characters may look weak. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I can argue, but in this book, the female character is a badass. Finally, I think the book beautifully explores the topic of empathy and putting yourself in another person's shoes to understand why they do some of the things that they do and where they're coming from and who they are beneath the things that they've done because of life circumstances. So yeah, Heartbones was just 5 out of 5. I loved it. I read the biggest heartbreak of my December, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I'm not gonna really get into this one a lot because I've already done a reading vlog about it where I go into every detail, but basically this is 6 out of 5 stars for me, for sure. I don't usually give 6 stars, it's just a rare thing, but this month alone there were 2 6 stars. That's amazing. Mostly Greek mythology, historical fiction, and a very heartbreaking romance. Madeline Miller has a beautiful way of writing her story. If you want more about this book, I've shared so much in my reading vlog. I will leave it in the description box so that you can go and watch it. Next, I read A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. If you remember, this was in my huge haul and I was just like, the synopsis and the cover just kind of terrifies me because if you don't know, that woman is holding a human heart. So this book is extremely dark, very disturbing, definitely a bunch of trigger warnings for you to look up. The story follows this female, she's a food critic and she narrates her own story. So this is a first-person view. She talks about all the delicious food that she had, especially the ones that she had in Italy. Now she is in prison because she is a serial killer. That's right, this woman didn't just enjoy delicious food across the country, she also enjoyed the organs of the men that she killed after she cooked it in the most beautiful way. Do you want to throw up right now? Because I sure as hell wanted to throw up quite a lot of times reading this. Like I said, disturbing, so disturbing. In my opinion, the way Chelsea G. Summers wrote this book is extremely smart because she had me believe that this serial killer was actually sitting across from me telling me her story of how she killed these men and cooked them and ate them and what they tasted like. And all the time I was just like, oh no. I felt angry, I felt disgusted, I had a lot of questions. I wanted to analyze this woman at a lot of points. Because she's the narrator, she addresses you, the reader, and you're just like, whoa. It's not a hard read writing wise, it's just a hard read because are you ready to stomach this? Sometimes she goes out of her way to tell you something else, and sometimes it felt like it was just dragged and unnecessary, and then some other times I was like, this is great because I'm learning about this woman, her past, her background, and what led her to do these things and be who she is today. She kind of makes you agree with her on some points and you're like, wait a minute, did that make sense? Did I just agree with a psychopathic serial killer? Yeah, this was actually okay. I think I gave it 4.2 stars. And the last book is an audiobook, The DoOver by Lynn Painter, the same author as Better Than the Movies. A 7-hour audiobook on YouTube. I got to almost 5.5 and then the audiobook was taken down. So I never got to finish it. Cute, it was fun. Maybe not as fun as Better Than the Movies, but yeah, I can't give you a final review because I didn't finish the whole thing. We're done with December books. I am just so excited for January as well. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know which one of these books took your attention and you want to read next, because I kind of want to know. I'll see you in my next one. Take care. Bye.